Here we go. Let the party continue. Welcome back. And here with the secret to growing many perfect tomatoes is Fran Blank from Don Mold's Plantation. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me back.
I love seeing you, and this is a great thing to talk about right now because there's so many different kinds of tomatoes. Tomatillo, that's not even a tomato.
That's kind of a tomato.
Yeah.
But very popular now.
Very popular
in
now.
the kitchen. Wonderful in the kitchen.
Oh, you can grow this in the kitchen?
Salsa. No, you can use it in the kitchen.
Oh, yeah. That's the thing that's got sort of a wrapper on it, like
right,
a paper wrapper?
Right, and you peel it off and wash it and chop it up.
I go to the garden store and I look around, there's all these different kinds of tomatoes. What do I have to know about them and what should I be planting?
Okay, the first thing I want to share is be aware that tomatoes grow in two different ways. They can be determinate, which means that it will ultimately be a smaller tomato, and it'll set most of its tomatoes at one time and ripen them mostly at one time. It's called a bush tomato. So if you have a smaller garden or want to grow in a container, look for one that's a determinate tomato.
That's like those millions are like that too, right?
Well, it's not the tomato itself, the plant I'm talking about.
The plant, okay.
Sweet Million is an indeterminate tomato.
What's the difference now?
A determinate tomato grows to a certain size and then stops.
It's done.
Makes its tomatoes and it's done. An indeterminate grows and grows and grows until frost kills it. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
And keeps having tomatoes?
Keeps making tomatoes. Determinate tomato tends to make its tomatoes and it's done. An indeterminate tomato makes tomatoes, makes tomatoes, makes tomatoes.
Can you tell which is which now?
You have to read labels.
And will it say that on there?
It should say it. Of course, these don't, but it should say it. Or you have to do a little research if you want.
Okay, now here's my big question. I don't know if it's a good question or not, but people always say to pinch off the little sucker branches or leaves that aren't good for the plant. Tell me about that.
If you have a determinate tomato, you might want to leave it alone. If you have an indeterminate, it's going to grow and grow and grow. You might want to pinch a little bit to control the growth.
Okay, so they're talking about those ones like this one here. This has blossoms on it, right?
Right.
So those blossoms are going to become tomatoes.
Correct.
Now this thing under it is, this little thing in here is not doing anything, right?
That's a sucker.
That's it. So you pinch off those little suckers.
You just use your fingernail if you want to. Some people say don't. It's controversial.
The old timers say do it.
Yeah, you just pinch it off like that.
Okay, so it's not this big one.
No.
It's that little one that goes in the middle here.
Right.
Okay, is there another one? Is there some?
Right here's one.
Okay.
It comes up between the stem and the branch, and you just
Oh yeah.
And you just take it out.
And how about staking them up? Now, when should you stake them? Like before they get big, or?
Well, you get ready to stake them when you plant them. If you have a determinate variety, you shouldn't have to stake it because it's a bush. If you have an indeterminate that's going to get bigger and bigger, it needs some kind of control to keep the tomatoes up off the ground.
What's that tomato that everyone wants? San Marino?
San Marzano.
Marzano
is a paste tomato. It's for cooking. It's wonderful.
What kind of, is that indeterminate or determinate?
It's an indeterminate.
Okay, and that one, do you have to stake it?
You should stake it.
Okay.
And it keeps making tomatoes, and it's a good meat sauce tomato.
Okay, so when we plant these, I see you got a bucket of straw here. What's that for?
Well, I always recommend that you mulch tomatoes to keep the moisture in the soil even.
So that means after I plant them in the dirt, I put this mulch over the dirt?
Here's your plant. If this is your plant, you put the mulch around it. Keep a donut out. Don't go too close to the stem.
Don't touch it with the mulch. Just put the mulch around it.
And what I do is I use, here, I'll have you hold that.
I'm good at that.
Okay. I use newspaper. Probably 2 layers of newspaper.
We're learning some stuff here
like
today.
This.
Okay.
Hose it down, wet it, and then you just put straw on top of it, and you are done for the summer. You don't have to mulch.
Okay, my tomato plant is down here in the middle of this.
Your tomato plant is right in the middle.
So I just punch a hole. I put it in the ground and then just put the paper around it.
Or you can just you can have your tomato here and lay the paper around it and then mulch with the straw.
I got
Keep it wet.
And that keeps the moisture in because we get some really hot, dry August weather in there when the tomatoes are ripening.
Right. And one problem in particular with tomatoes like San Marzano is they get a blossom end rot. And it's not a disease. It has to do with too much moisture, not enough moisture. Too much, not enough. And the bottom of the tomato gets all black and nasty. And if you mulch, you can keep the moisture even.
Even, instead of going up and down, up and down.
Right.
Now, what, your kid came home from college? What's this?
No. Tomatoes need, what can I say? Tomatoes need 1 inch of water a week. And the only way to tell is if you have a rain gauge. So you put a rain gauge, and when it fills up to 1 inch, you know your tomatoes have enough. If you don't get enough rain, you can water.
This is, Andre would like one of these. So
Well, I'm sure Andre has one.
So where do you? So how do you set? You set
It has
it
a
up
stake
above the ground.
yeah, it has a stake that sticks in the ground, and this attaches to a stake.
Okay. Everyone says
just
no.
didn't bring it.
I bought some tomatoes. The guy says, make sure you feed them. What do I feed them?
Okay, don't feed them too much nitrogen.
No.
If you feed tomatoes too much nitrogen, they get huge, beautiful green leaves, and the plants grow huge, and you get little fruit because nitrogen feeds leaves and stems. So I recommend organic fertilizer.
Okay.
This is, it has less nitrogen, more phosphorus.
Great. Where do we find you? If we want to find
Don
you?
Mold's Plantation.
Don Mold's Plantation. Look at this. She brought me another apron. I love them. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I had a good time. I wish we had more time for that because I loved it, but we're moving right to the kitchen right after this. And it's